Hi, my name is Laura Brown. I'm an instructor at high school level here. I teach stained glass. And in this video, what I'm going to go over is the project called the Representational Window and how we design it. So this is going to be all about how we get to that final design. First off, I have students, again, if you've seen the mosaic video, these plan sheets, I have them fill out, excuse me, I have them fill out at least 6 of these. And before they move on to the next step, I want to see at least 6 designs. Now, students with a representational window, one thing I need to remind them is that it is representational. So we're kind of moving away from geometry, moving away from any type of lettering. We really want something that is an image of something. So whether it be a flower or an animal or some three-dimensional object that we're going to portray in stained glass. So for this, in the school, I'm not sure how long ago, but there was a giant one of these cougars that was made for the lunchroom. It's pretty cool. And it all started off with this image and was later translated into what is now the stained glass piece. So in stained glass, you don't have to be a master at drawing or anything. Some people do draw their own images, but in this class, sometimes we have students that use sample images and interpret them in a way to make the work their own. So the first thing that the student would need to do is first make their sketches, then they need to find a sample image. So there are sample images all over the classroom, or they can use the internet, which is fine, or magazines. And so I have my sample image here of this cougar. And then the next thing I would want to do is I need to get it into a state where it's actually divided up as a stained glass piece. So this is tracing paper, which you could use. But if you have a light table, I recommend using a light table. It makes things much easier. So what happened here is this tracing paper was laid on top. And by looking at the main parts of the cougar, the student went through and traced and divided up the face and the background. Now for this project, I believe the piece requirement might be 80 to 100 pieces. So we check the piece requirement on that. But at this point, with making break lines in a representational window design, you always want to make sure that everything's cuttable out of glass. Glass can only be cut edge to edge. The other thing is, in glass, we have to make sure that our curves and our points are not too sharp. Because if they are, so let's say this curve coming down came down in like a triangle, unless you have some type of special saw or something, you wouldn't be able to cut that out of glass. So need to make sure that everything's cuttable out of glass when they're making the design, and to start simple and to add pieces as needed. Another really important thing about designing representational window is to make sure that the break lines, which are all these lines drawn, really flow throughout the piece. So instead of making just a straight break line here where there's a curve in the face of the cougar, the person that designed this decided to make all these lines have a nice little flow. You want to try to make your break lines as unnoticeable as possible, because sometimes you have to put a break line where there isn't actually a line. So in order to make a really good design, you want to try to have all your break lines blend in with the rest of the project. So this is on tracing paper, like I said, but you could just put it on regular paper. Now the dimensions for this project, we do 11 by 14, so this is actually a little small, and we'd have to make it larger. Now in order to make it larger, what we would do is there is a projector in the back room that you can project it onto a larger piece of paper. But sometimes when we go to project something, this actually might be too large for the projector. This is just an 8.5 by 11, just a standard size. So what you might need to do is take this to a copy machine and copy it, reduce the size and actually make it a smaller image. So this was the image that was used to make the very, very large window in our school. And so this was probably projected to be several feet by several feet. So we had to make the image smaller in order for it to project the size that we needed. So if you try to project it and you're not able to do it, then you might just need to make the image a little bit smaller because we have limited space as far as the projector goes. At this point, once we would get our, so let's just say this is my 11 by 14 piece of paper, what I tell students to do next is to number every single piece. Because if we don't number every piece, once we cut them out, it's going to be very confusing. This is our master pattern. I talked about having a master pattern, so this would be the master pattern that we would fit to. And we need a glossy pattern to cut out our pattern pieces. So I had a short intro video that showed you all these materials, but here's our glossy paper. I would go to a light table and lay this on top, and I would trace it exactly, and I want to number it exactly too. The same. So if this piece back here was a 1, then as I put this down, the piece up here would be a 1. Same kind of thing as last time, we'd want to move into coloring our design, and I have an example that has been started. So this right here with these penguins, someone has started to decide on their colors on the master pattern. So this is just a plain copy paper pattern that you would color in. At that point, once this is completely colored in and all the colors are chosen, you would want to take your glossy pattern and you're going to cut that out with pattern shears. And I'm going to have a demo on that in the apple flower video. I'm going to show you how to cut out with pattern shears. And so that's pretty much the design procedure for representational window.